And we're live. I have no idea how to add the chat here. But you know what I can do is I can join the live. Turn my sound down. Yeah, that's sick. That thumbnail that they gave me is pretty sick. Fight game fame. Move this mic up. How do I get the chat on the screen? That's a good question. Scenes. I want to add a scene. Is that what I want to do? I don't think I need to add a scene. Maybe I do need to add a scene. You know what? Actually, it's not that I need to add a scene. I need to add a source. Got one viewer. Shout out to Jeremy for joining the stream. I hope you're ready to talk some MMA. Go ahead and leave your hottest takes in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to ask that too. And yeah, let's just talk some MMA. Let's just talk about the great sport of MMA. General sources. I'm trying to find a way to get the chat on the screen. I can see what you chat, but you can't see that I can see the chat. And you can't see, yeah, whatever. I think I need to add a widget so I can see the chat. Alert box, donation goal, subscriber goal. How do I, chat box. There we go. Chat box. I'll go with the default. That's cool with me. Add the chat box. Theme is clean. Sure the theme could be clean. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck, mate. Have I told you to wait yet? 185. I don't know, it's just stuck in my head. Browser settings, custom. No, man, this is good. This is good. How do I even confirm it? Chat's on the screen? Potentially. I don't fucking know. But you know what I can do? I can try it out. Huh. What's something that somebody would put in the chat? Jeremy, you actually think UFC 300 is sick? I do too, man. I think people are hating on it way too much. Earlier, I was looking at the UFC 200 and the UFC 100. Because, dude, honestly, UFC 100 was so long ago. I think at this point, as crazy as it sounds, I think it's possible that, not even possible, I think it's likely most fans right now of the sport were not watching during the time of UFC 100. And a lot of them, maybe not most for 200, but I think a gigantic percentage. I think now the UFC is trying to get into the younger market, which they've been very successful in doing so. I think people don't understand UFC 100 and UFC 200. I think a lot of people look at them and they're like, people look at UFC 100 and they're like, oh my God, that was sick. George St. Pierre was on the undercard. It's like, yeah, because he wasn't George St. Pierre yet. And the same thing about John Jones. It's like he wasn't John Jones yet, right? He was a really good young fighter with a lot of promise. It's funny though. A lot of people complain about UFC 300 because of, the title fight. It's not something absolutely insane. It's not gonna, it's not gonna completely shock you, right? But I think the thing that UFC 300 lacks, and it's kind of ironic, UFC 300 does not have a lot of prospects on it. The only prospect it has is Bo Nickel, and that's it. So there is always that chance that, yeah, Bo Nickel becomes a crazy, long reigning champion, and we look back and like, oh my God, dude, like Bo Nickel was on the undercard, but he's the only guy like that. For a lot of these other guys I think they've already reached the upper limit of who they're going to be as far as star power. Look at Charles Oliveira. He was just a long reigning champion with some insane finishes over some of the best fighters, the most known fighters in the UFC, Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Poirier. I don't see Oliveira's star power exceeding what it is now. I think it's at the height. It's at the top of where it can be. So, and same for a lot of guys. Same for Max Holloway. Same for Justin Gaethje. Because Holloway he's already a long reigning champion, right? So I don't see this as a situation where I think UFC 300 is gonna be judged on the quality of its fights more so than the quality of how the matchups age. Unlike 100 and 200. Yeah, I still think UFC 300 is pretty good. Let me see what else we got in the chat. Nothing yet. And then Jeremy again. Ilia Topuria may end up being the GOAT at 145 pounds. It's an interesting take. It's one of those things where premature GOAT talk is always kind of weird because anything can happen, especially in the world of MMA with the most fickle fans that exist. Ilia has the skills to be, but we've seen a lot of guys who on paper have the skills to be unbeatable. You know what's crazy? Look at Islam Makhachev. Absolutely insane. Insane high-level grappling, that Dagestani wrestling, but he's also a sick kickboxer. People forget he got knocked out early in his career. You know, anything can happen. That's why we watch the sport. That's why it's so exciting. So I think it's a little premature to say Topuria is going to end up being the GOAT at 145. But what I will say is that if you had to pick a fighter in the UFC right now, and I think most sports are like this, the sport's more fun when there's a bigger overarching story to follow. Basketball is a great example of this. Football is too. But, you know, in basketball, we're always watching the LeBron James story. Will he become the GOAT? And we can't shift from that storyline until somebody else takes that spot. I think that's what we just saw with Ilia Topuria beating Volkanovski. A year ago, Volk was looking like the potential GOAT, right? The best fighter to ever fight in MMA, period. Right? Had he won that Islam fight or even the Islam rematch, because I think even more people would be on his side because they thought he got robbed in the first fight, he would be viewed as the GOAT in my mind. I can't speak for everyone else, but I know John Jones has way too many, hiccups, right, to say the least. I think a lot of people are going to be like, John Jones is the drug cheat. We can't call him the GOAT. Who else is even in the discussion after you take John Jones away? You got George St. Pierre, but then he's got the 2 losses, and then some people say, George fought Bisping for the 185-pound belt. That wasn't the best version of Bisping. Bisping was older, and he didn't defend that belt. So if Volk would have went up to 155 and beat Islam, he would have been the GOAT. And I think Volk was already heading in the direction of getting older. We just saw him get knocked out by Islam and then now by Topuria. Topuria is kind of sliding in at that perfect time. And then you think about Holloway, all the damage he's taken, and people are worried about him versus Justin Gaethje. We'll see what happens there, but I don't see a single person at 45 that has anything for Topuria except for Yair because of the kicks. If Topuria can get through Yair, I don't see anyone else at 145 that can beat him. I just don't. If you were thinking about a young up-and-comer at 45, if you wanted to throw in a Bryce Mitchell, already beat him. If you want to talk about someone with crazy knockout power he could catch him, right? Because anybody can get caught on any given day. Well, that was Josh Emmett. He completely destroyed him. And then you want to talk about somebody with that kind of that greatness factor that doesn't know how to lose, and Volkanovski just knocked him out. At this point, there really is no one else that actually looks like they can beat Topuria. I see we got another viewer in here. It's pretty good, man. If you have anything to say, man, go ahead and leave something in the chat, man. I'm always interested to see what you guys have to say. If you have any questions or hot takes, leave them in the chat. And I'm going to get right back to yapping about this great, beautiful sport of MMA. But yeah, what I was saying was Topuria has GOAT written. And look, I'm not going to be the guy to just thrust him into the GOAT conversation, but I think he definitely has everything you want to see out of a guy who is at least heading in that direction. And he's the only guy like that in MMA right now, which is crazy. If you think about it, John Jones, a big part of his career, overlapped with George St. Pierre's career, right? And even John Jones is still fighting. I'm talking about him like he's fucking dead. But you think about John Jones' career also overlapped with Adesanya when he was going on that insane undefeated streak where people were like, yeah, he can go up to light heavyweight, maybe even heavyweight. There's always been at least one guy, a lot of times 2 guys at the same time. They're in that discussion. I think Ilya's coming at a time where the UFC needs stars like this. And I think the UFC is going to push him a lot because of it. I think that we're going to see a UFC Spain. I think we're going to see it this year. What else? I think there's a lot in the store. I think they're going to get, I think the marketing machine, and people forget, man, the marketing machine behind the UFC is capable of so much. It's insane. It's insane. I think a lot of people don't understand that. If they get behind Ilia the way they got behind Masvidal, for instance, dude, this guy, at least in terms of people who like MMA, is going to be a household name. Totally. 100%. 100%. It's crazy. It's crazy. I should probably leave like a pinned comment in here or something. Dude, I don't know what I'm doing. And shout out to whoever's watching this because I'm still kind of figuring this out on the fly. I don't even know how it chose that thumbnail. Go ahead. I think there's something populating in the chat. It's almost as if I'm the one writing it. It's kind of strange. I'm a fucking idiot. Yeah. I actually have to order some food soon, so let me check the chat. Is there anything else I can check up on in the chat? What's the next card is? O'Malley. And let's see. Oh, we got another question in the chat. How do you see Topuria versus Sean O'Malley going? Kind of funny that you say that, because there was some talk back in the day of Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia Topuria because they had some beef. They had a little run in the fighter hotel during fight week, and people were talking about, man, like, you know, Topuria is the kind of guy who's willing to go up to 55. Obviously, Paddy fights at 55, and there was beef there, right? It seemed like a good foundation to get a pretty big name fight for both guys, right? The real reason that fight never happened is because of how good Topuria is. I'd be very curious to see if Dana White is willing to let Sean O'Malley fight someone as good as Ilia Topuria, because I don't see that happening. I just don't see that happening. Topuria's knockout power, I think this is the thing that, like, I'm curious to see where the narrative about this goes, because, you know, MMA it's a crazy sport, man. Fans are fickle. Fans, you know, will love you one minute, hate you the next. I think if Ilia keeps this up with a couple more knockouts at this championship level, we're going to talk about him as being one of the best pure boxers and one of the best punchers that we've ever seen at 145 pounds. I don't think Dana White, he loves money too much. I don't think he would set up Sean O'Malley to go up against someone like that. If Ilia can knock out Jai Herbert at 155, I have no reservations that he can knock out Sean O'Malley at 145 pounds. Because O'Malley got, there's a lot of red tape around it, right? We can kind of pretend that what happened isn't fully what happened. Yes, he had the drop foot, but O'Malley got knocked out by Cheeto. Now, does he get knocked out if he doesn't have the drop foot? I don't know. But the facts are he got knocked out, right? So if he can get knocked out by Cheeto, and to be fair, yes, they're, you know, elbows to a grounded opponent. It's a little different than a punch. But he was still conscious when he got knocked out by Cheeto. When you look at the knockouts that Ilia's putting out, Ilia is putting people 100% completely to sleep. He's turning them off, right? He's flipping the switch. I think he could do that against pretty much everybody. If he can do that against all these people at 145, I got no questions that he can do it to people at 35. And then you think about Sean's a big guy, man. Sean's, for 135, he's got to be one of the biggest 35ers ever. And he is pretty skinny, but at the same time, man, like, you can cut weight, right? But you're not gonna get rid of bone density. You know what I mean? Like, he's for sure cutting a good amount of weight to make 135. So I guess you can argue that if he goes up to 145, he's less dehydrated. Maybe he takes a punch better. I just don't see him being able to survive that. Now, can he knock out Ilia? That I don't know. That I don't know, because if you look at the perfectly timed, perfectly placed punch he landed on Aljo, a 35er who cuts a lot of weight to make 135. He stopped him. He didn't put him to sleep, though. I think we're talking about a power difference between O'Malley and Topuria that is much bigger than people understand. So I don't think that they make that fight. I think it just doesn't make sense. I think if I'm Sean O'Malley, I understand why he wants that fight. It's a big money fight, because if he's able to get the job done, he has 2 belts. He beat this undefeated phenomenon in Ilia Topuria. And if he's able to get past Cheeto, he can still claim to be undefeated, right? So I understand why he's doing it, but I don't see him winning that fight. MMA is a crazy sport. Anything can happen, but I'd be curious to see what the odds are. I'd be very curious to see what they end up making the odds for that, because, yeah, I think that's a mismatch of all mismatches. Well, all right. This was a lot of fun. I'm gonna get off a little early. Gotta go ahead and get some food, and then your boy's got to work tomorrow. So thank you guys for coming to the stream, and I have no idea when I'm going to do this again at all whatsoever. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe this is like a nightly thing, because this is actually a lot of fun. I could definitely see myself doing this like every single day. But that being said, I got some stuff I got to get to. So thanks again for coming to the stream, and